In 1848, French artist Frédéric Sorrieu painted a dream of democratic and social republics, nations marching together, not led by kings, but by their own flags. His print shows people from across Europe and America streaming past the Statue of Liberty, paying homage to Enlightenment and the Charter of Rights. The ground is littered with broken crowns and scepters, symbolizing the end of absolutist rule. Sorrieu's vision was radical. Nations defined by shared culture and the will for freedom, not by monarchs. Leading the procession are the United States and Switzerland, followed by France, Germany, and other European peoples, each with their own flags and costumes. At the time, Germany was not yet unified. Their flag represented hopes for a democratic nation. The print captures the early idealistic dream of nationalism, liberation from empires, and the creation of self-governing communities. Sorrieu's art didn't just reflect reality. It inspired millions to imagine a new Europe built on popular sovereignty. This optimistic spirit would soon shape and challenge the continent's future. Nationalism's modern form first ignited in the French Revolution of 1789. Before then, France was a kingdom ruled by an absolute monarch. People were subjects, not citizens. The revolution shifted power to the people, declaring that the nation's destiny belonged to its citizens. New symbols, like the tricolour flag, replaced royal emblems, and the National Assembly was elected by citizens. Uniform laws, a centralized administration, and the abolition of internal trade barriers unified the country. Regional dialects were discouraged. Parisian French became the national language, binding people together. Hymns, oaths, and commemorations fostered a shared culture and identity. The revolution provided a blueprint: shared government, common laws, unifying symbols, and a single language. This model of nation-building would soon spread across Europe. The French example showed how a nation could be forged from revolution and reform. After the revolution, Napoleon Bonaparte took France's ideals across Europe by force. French armies claimed to bring liberty, abolishing feudalism and aristocratic privilege wherever they went. Napoleon's reforms modernized administration, freed peasants, and opened markets, appealing to many in the middle class. But the promise of freedom came with heavy taxes, censorship, and forced conscription. The liberators soon looked like occupiers, sparking resentment and resistance. In Spain, guerrilla fighters rose up. In Germany, intellectuals called for national unity against French rule. Ironically, Napoleon's conquests awakened the very nationalism he sought to suppress. The dream of liberty turned into a demand for self-determination. Napoleon's empire fell because the people of Europe wanted to define their own destinies. The age of empires was ending. The age of nations was beginning. Nationalism, once exported by France, now fueled resistance everywhere. Before nationalism, Europe was a patchwork of kingdoms and empires, ruled by aristocrats loyal to monarchs, not nations. The Habsburg Empire, for example, was a mosaic of peoples: Germans, Italians, Magyars, Poles, and Czechs, united only by loyalty to the emperor. The aristocracy held power and privilege while peasants had few rights. But industrial and commercial growth created a new middle class: industrialists, professionals, and businessmen. Their influence grew with trade and education, and they began to challenge the old order. This middle class championed national unity, constitutions, and the rule of law. They saw nation-states as the path to their own rights and prosperity. The clash between the rising middle class and the entrenched aristocracy would drive the political drama of the 19th century. Nationalism became the rallying cry for a new, merit-based society. For the new middle class, nationalism was inseparable from liberalism. Freedom, equality before the law, and government by consent. Liberals demanded constitutions, parliaments, and protection of private property, challenging the old dynastic order. However, early liberalism was cautious. Voting rights were limited to property-owning men, excluding the poor and all women. Economically, liberals pushed for free markets and the abolition of trade barriers. The Zollverein, a customs union led by Prussia, unified German states economically and paved the way for political unity. After Napoleon's defeat, conservative monarchies tried to suppress liberal and nationalist ideas with censorship, but these ideas survived underground, spreading through secret societies like the Carbonari in Italy. Giuseppe Mazzini, inspired by these movements, founded Young Italy and Young Europe to fight for national unification. The struggle for liberal national states continued despite repression. The seeds of revolution were sown in secret, waiting to erupt. The conservative order of 1815 was shaken by revolutions in 1830 and 1848. France led the way, overthrowing the Bourbons and inspiring uprisings in Belgium and beyond. These revolutions were fueled by Romanticism, which celebrated national culture, folk traditions, and the spirit of the people. In places like Germany and Poland, language and folklore became tools of resistance and identity. The 1848 revolutions erupted across Europe, with liberals and nationalists demanding constitutions and nation-states. For a moment it seemed Sorrieu's dream might come true, but conservative monarchies regrouped and crushed the uprisings. The old order survived, but the idea of national self-determination could not be extinguished. The springtime of the peoples failed, but it changed Europe forever. The struggle for nationhood would continue in new forms. After 1848, unification in Italy and Germany was led by pragmatic state leaders, not revolutionaries. In Italy, King Victor Emmanuel II and his minister Cavour used diplomacy and war to unite the north, while Garibaldi's 1,000 liberated the south. Garibaldi handed his conquests to the king, and Italy was unified in 1861. In Germany, Prussia's Otto von Bismarck championed realpolitik, unification by iron and blood. Bismarck orchestrated wars against Denmark, Austria, and France, each victory fueling German nationalism. In 1871, the Prussian king was crowned German emperor at Versailles, completing unification. These new nations were forged by state power, not popular uprisings. Nationalism had become a tool of strong leaders and armies. The map of Europe was redrawn by force and strategy. The dream of unity was realized, but not as the early idealists had imagined. The age of nation-states had truly arrived. Italy and Germany's unification inspired others across Europe. Nationalism was now a force that could not be ignored. Britain's path to nationhood was gradual, shaped by English dominance over Wales, Scotland, and Ireland. The 1707 Act of the Union created the United Kingdom, with English culture and institutions imposed on Scotland. Scottish traditions were suppressed after failed rebellions. Ireland faced even harsher treatment, deepening divisions. The 1801 Act of Union incorporated Ireland, but fueled Irish nationalism rather than unity. British identity was promoted through symbols like the Union Jack, the national anthem, and the English language. Imperial rivalry with France and overseas expansion fostered a sense of shared pride among the English, Scots, and Welsh. Yet the Irish largely remained outside this consensus, dreaming of independence. Britain's nationhood was built on both inclusion and exclusion. How do you give a face to a nation? In the 18th and 19th centuries, artists personified nations as female allegories. France's Marianne embodied liberty and the Republic, often shown with a red cap and tricolour. Statues and images of Marianne became symbols of unity and citizenship. In Germany, the figure of Germania wore an oak crown and held a sword, symbolizing strength and readiness to defend the nation. These allegories appeared on coins, stamps, and monuments, making the nation a tangible presence in daily life. They helped people connect emotionally to the abstract idea of nationhood. Marianne and Germania became mother figures for their peoples, embodying shared hopes and identity. Through art and symbols, nationalism became a deeply personal, unifying force. By the late 19th century, nationalism took a darker turn, less about liberation, more about power and exclusion. European powers manipulated nationalist feelings to fuel imperial ambitions and rivalry. Nowhere was this more explosive than in the Balkans, a region of diverse peoples seeking independence from the weakening Ottoman Empire. Competing national claims led to fierce conflicts, and the term Balkanization fragmentation into hostile states. Great powers like Russia, Austria, Hungary, Britain, and Germany intervened, turning the region into a battleground for their interests. Nationalism became a tool for both local and imperial ambitions, making the Balkans a powder keg. The assassination of an Austrian archduke in Sarajevo by a Serbian nationalist would ignite World War I. The dream of national self-determination now threatened to tear Europe apart.